What's going on, y'all? Look, I always say make better choices because no matter how frustrating a situation is, it's never worth it to let your emotions or pride push you into something you'll regret later on. So, if you haven't heard, a man's life was taken by an employee who worked at Checkers down in Kissimmee, Florida, and the entire situation is just silly. It's like, how did things get to the point of a person pulling out a gun and taking somebody's life over something so trivial as a few packets of mayo? And honestly, I don't think it was just about the mayo, but check this out. And as usual, I'll come back with my thoughts about the situation.
Now to a deadly fight at a Checkers that put an employee behind bars, accused of shooting and killing a customer. He just faced a judge. The shooting happened late Wednesday night at the Checkers on US 192, right at the entrance of Old Town near Fun Spot in Kissimmee. News 6's Laverne McGee tells us what she's learning.
Versus Elijah Mackey.
Deputies say this man, 23-year-old Elijah Mackey, is the Checkers worker who shot and killed a customer over a food order. He showed no emotion during his first appearance this afternoon, charged with the murder of Wesley Robertson.
The defendant will be held pursuant to Arthur at no bond that can be taken up with an appropriate motion with the division judge.
The affidavit for arrest warrant gives details from two witnesses who were also at the Checkers Old Town in Kissimmee. They give similar accounts. One says in part, the customer began complaining about his order. A male employee came around the right side of the building and began an argument with the customer. The customer called the employee an expletive, and the male employee pulled out a small handgun. The second witness said in part, the male was possibly asking for mayonnaise packets. Expletives were heard. The employee pulled out a gun and shot him.
We spent some time at the Checkers this afternoon. It's open, there weren't too many customers, and the management would not speak with us.
Makes me feel scared and insecure.
It's tragic. You know, things like that happen. We don't know what's going on with their personal lives. So unfortunately, there's a lot of mental health issues that are going on with people that they just don't resolve. So that could be one of the factors. We just don't know.
And it doesn't make you nervous going through drive-thrus and going to these fast food places?
Well, if we would have known that this shooting happened yesterday, I don't think we would have chosen this restaurant. So yeah, unfortunately. Well, hopefully the employees are doing okay and they get some kind of trauma. Yeah. Some kind of trauma treatment.
Laverne McGee, News 6.
It's insane, right? And unbelievable. But with a lot of these situations, you have to understand that these are real people in these stories. I wish it was made up, but it's not. So this young man decided to insert himself into a disagreement that had nothing to do with him. And the victim, Wesley Robertson, he was complaining about his order to a female employee at the drive-thru window, and he wanted to speak with the manager. And according to a witness, that's when Elijah Mackey climbed through a drive-thru window, started to argue with the victim, who insulted Mackey by calling him some names, and that's when he shot the customer. And a second witness provided a similar statement about what happened and went on to state that it was possibly for mayo packets. Here's my thing. I don't think it was just about a few packets of mayo. That may have been what started it, but it wasn't just about that. I believe it had more to do with pride, ego, and of course, poor decision making. Now, the customer was upset about his order and wanted to speak with the manager, which I think is pretty normal. It's a pretty normal reaction. I think most people would do the same if their order was wrong or whatever. And where he may have gone wrong was in how he, I guess, handled that frustration, maybe by yelling or throwing insults. But that doesn't justify what Elijah Mackey did. The customer, yeah, he was angry. He was upset about his order, but it was Elijah Mackey who crossed the line. He took someone's life over mayo packets and some words. And in situations like these, you will lose every time if you end up taking somebody's life. No matter how right you think you are, and if it's not a thing of self-defense, you know, the moment you take somebody's life, you've already lost. You've lost. Pride, anger, and even a valid argument, none of it matters because you crossed that threshold and you've traded it all for something that can't be undone. And so now at 23 years old, he's facing some serious time, charged with first-degree premeditated murder with a firearm. And down in Florida, that's a capital offense, punishable by either the death penalty or life in prison without the possibility of parole. All for what? Some words and a few packets of mayo. Instead of jumping out that drive-thru window with a gun, maybe he could have went out there with some extra mayo for the guy and just let him go about his way. Or maybe just get the manager like the guy wanted. Or if he was there, being all extra and belligerent, call the cops. Anything would have been better than using a gun to handle that situation. A situation that he wasn't even supposed to be involved in, from the start. If he was there witnessing that female employee being given a hard time, he could have went and got the manager himself and told them what was going on and just let them handle the situation. I mean, that's why they're managers. That's what they're there for, is to, deal with complaints and issues that customers might have. And hopefully the managers, have some kind of sense and know how to properly resolve the conflict without things escalating to dangerous and lethal levels. But you can't just fly off the handle and not expect any consequences. In the heat of the moment, you might feel justified, but once you do something like what Elijah Mackey did, there's no going back. One moment can cost you your freedom, your future, and in this case, somebody's life or your own life. Because just think, had the other guy also had a gun and was able to use it, we might be talking about a different outcome. But it's just not worth it, man. We see so many situations where people, they get into these arguments with each other and they go back and forth, and it never ends well. Somebody always, ends up hurt or losing their lives because of it. And then somebody's always going to prison. So until next time, y'all take care, stay safe, and just make better choices. Peace, y'all.